that. It's a great benefit of membership. For the past 27 years, Greg has provided trust, tax, and philanthropic financial planning advice to over 4,000 attorneys, 8,000 development officers, and financial planners in all 50 states regarding more than 19,000 charitable remainder trusts, and we have to hear the song today, more than 800 charitable lead trusts, numerous foundations, charitable gift annuities, and donor advised funds. Greg has helped donors contribute over $6 billion to charitable gift plans. With that, I am dying to hear what he has to say about how we can take advantage of our clients with IRAs and retirement assets. We're dying to give them this. Thank you, Greg.
It was the spring of 2009 and Dave Winfrey had a problem. Dave was 67 and just diagnosed with Parkinson's. Now, having lost his wife to cancer the previous year, Dave understood the medical industry and he knew what he needed to do to get treatment. But Dave knew he had an even bigger problem and one that he had been avoiding for several years. What would he do about his estate? You see, Dave's wife, Mary, gave everything to him, and he longed to do something in her honor. Over the next several months, while settling Mary's estate, Dave's attorney and other advisors asked him a few simple questions. Dave, are there charities you and Mary support on a regular basis? What would you most like to change or preserve in the world during your lifetime? Now, like most Americans, Dave and Mary gave something to charity every year or two, so these questions resonated with him, and he enjoyed the ensuing conversations. Dave's attorney described how he could restructure his assets and open up some new accounts that would invest tax-free, provide Dave with lifetime cash flow, make gifts to his heirs, and honor his late wife. Over time, Dave found that the giving part of his life grew to have more meaning. And today we'll talk about how you can find the Dave Winfreys in your line of work, bring more meaning to their life, and also raise more gifts for your organizations. And we'll do that focusing on retirement plans and IRAs. We'll go through some background statistical information. We'll talk about why we should care, why it's important to us. And the basic reason is because it's important to our clients, our donors. We'll talk about Roth IRAs just a little bit. We'll talk about lifetime planning, what we can do with IRAs, such as the qualified charitable distribution rollover that was just mentioned, as well as an option for testamentary planning. Bottom line up front, if you miss everything else today, retirement plans are the highest taxed asset that your donors own. And high tax assets make wonderful charitable gifts. That's the bottom line. Take that back home with you. Take nothing else home with you today. Some background and statistics. First of all, IRAs. Most of the time when money goes into an IRA, the donor is not taxed on that money when he or she contributed that money into the IRA. Whether it's through an IRA or into a 401k or a 403b plan, they are simply not taxed on that money when it goes into the retirement plan. While the retirement plan exists, that retirement plan is not taxed for income tax purposes either. It's only taxed when money is withdrawn from the retirement plan or the IRA. So say hello to charitable gifts of IRAs, the acronym HELLO, and on your sheets, this is where you can, this is one of the interactive parts of the program, you can fill out the lines. The H stands for highest tax asset. This is by far the highest taxed asset that your donors own. E stands for easy to transfer. It is a one-page form, or is a simple form naming your organization as the beneficiary of their retirement plan or IRA. It's a very straightforward process for the donor. L, the first L, it's a highly liquid asset. As charities, we love highly liquid assets. We love to get gifts of cash. We love checks. We love wires that come into our bank accounts. IRAs are a very easy asset to transfer. They're very highly liquid. They, most of the time, are going to be invested in mutual funds, possibly stocks and bonds, but it's going to be a very liquid asset for us most of the time. The other L that's important to us is large dollar values. These are large dollar values. If we're looking for major donors, IRA owners and retirement plan owners are one place that we will want to look for. The O stands for commonly owned asset. So it is an asset that very, very many of the citizens across America own. And we'll go through a little bit more of these statistics, and I'll bring this slide back up here in just a minute, just in case you missed one or two of them. We want to make sure you get the full set. But as Chris mentioned, I am a member of the National Board of the National Association of Charitable Gift Planners, and it's my job to do a short advertisement for NACGP. So for those of you who are not members, or even those of you who are members, you might not be aware of some of the tremendous benefits that we have. One of which is CGP Link. It is an online resource, an online portal or network of gift planners like yourself all across the country. And you can ask questions about anything, from the very mundane to, I heard somebody say this, or I read about this, or my donor says he wants to give a gift of patents. How do I do that? And somebody will be there to answer the questions. And so it's a monitored forum that is available. It's also a resource of past presentations at conferences, white papers, and other articles that are available, hundreds of articles that are available through the Charitable Gift Planning Link. That is an item that is free to all members of the National Association. There's also tremendous networking opportunities. And the rest of you can read other items that exist up here. There's a monthly webinar on the tax law. So on the tax law, as we went through last year, there's several webinars on what might happen, what's the state of the tax law change. Then once it was passed, there's been a few webinars already on what has actually happened, very similar to what Dennis did, which we appreciate. End of advertisement. Now is the second part of the interactive position. I appreciate you putting your phones on silent, but if you could pull them out now, we're going to take some polls so I can get an idea of the knowledge of the crowd. This is better than I find with raising a hand. I don't keep your information. I don't have your information. This is a free website, poll everywhere. But you can either go to get in your browser, go to pollev.com/GregBaker463, or you can text GregBaker463 to the number 22333. Either one of those, and if you can't read up here, it's I believe it's on the slide handout as well. The numbers that you need to pull into. So what we want to do is get just a flavor of the kind of experience that you have with IRAs and with charitable planning around the IRAs. I see most people looking up now, and so we'll go with our first poll. Okay. So I want to get an idea of your knowledge about retirement plans, your knowledge about IRAs. And it starts with perhaps the most experienced at the top. I understand the retirement plan distribution rules. I would expect there would be a few people that would answer that. Maybe I've heard about 59.5, I've heard about 70.5, but I'm not really sure about how they all play into the factors. I have my own retirement plan. Most of you should have your own retirement plan. Or maybe you're in the last category, I can't even spell IRA. Every time there's somebody that answers D. And that's okay. We want to get an idea for, we have the kind of experience in the crowd, or we have we know about IRAs, we know about retirement plans, we have one of our own perhaps. And thank you for answering that, whoever that was. Letter D. It seems to still be moving, so it must be still accepting some. I have the free version of this polling software, so there's a limit. I think it's 25 or 30 or 40 or somewhere in that range where it just stops and it won't take any more. But it's always interesting to just get a feel for what the audience knows. Our second question, we'll close that poll and move on to the next question. This will be our last one. Our second question is, describe your experience with retirement plan gifts. Have you closed lots of charitable gifts of retirement plans? Have you asked for lots of charitable gifts of retirement plans? Asked your donors. Have you asked for maybe a few? Or are you still in that, you can't spell IRA? And Now we see we have quite a few people in the B category, closed some gifts of retirement plans, which is great. And I would include closing gifts of retirement plans. If your donors have contributed and you were involved in the process of a qualified charitable distribution, a transfer from their IRA directly to the charity, I count that as a gift from a retirement plan. So you may put a different category in there and answer a letter A or letter B instead. But what we have is we have some knowledge of the retirement plan distribution rules, and we have in fact closed some gifts for some of the people across the audience, and so that gives me a good feel for the experience. And this is only my second time of actually using this poll for IRAs, and so I'm going to, once we get to about 5 or 10, then we'll actually have something where we're actually describing the country. But it's a poll everywhere. It's the last advertising for them. It's a free website. You can have these kinds of, you can have word doodles and other polling options as well. So here's the last chance for you to read, write in your last items for the HELLO, the highest taxed asset that your donors own. They're easy to transfer. They're a very highly liquid asset, which we love as charities. It's much easier than a gift of real estate. It's much easier than the gift of patents or a gift of closely held stock or a partnership agreement. Is much easier to deal with than any of those types of gifts. There's a very large dollar value and it's very commonly owned. So getting to commonly owned, the assets that are held in retirement plans across America, there's $27 trillion with a T, $27 trillion of retirement plan assets. Now that includes items like annuities, annuity contracts. It includes items like retirement annuities. It includes items like a pension plan, an actual pension, defined benefit pension plan. But we're going to focus on the bottom two categories that's on this slide right here. IRAs at the bottom in blue, and then defined contribution plans. When you say defined contribution plans, that's like a 401k or a 403b, where you put so much money in every single paycheck. You put dollars in it's defined as the contributions that go in as opposed to the ultimate benefit that you would receive at the end. The kinds of charitable gifts that we can receive as charities are the bottom two categories, IRAs and defined contribution plans, which right now represent 60% of the overall retirement market. So overall, all the money in the retirement plans, 60% of them can be given to charity very easily. Then we come to the slide of thirds. 1/3, a little bit over 1/3 of America's household financial assets are retirement assets. So if you look at all of the assets that a donor might have in their stock portfolio, their bond portfolio, and their IRA, 1/3 of their overall financial assets are retirement plan assets. The other 1/3 is that 1/3 of the retirement assets are IRAs, as we saw on the previous slide, 8 trillion out of the 27 trillion. And then 1/3 of American households own an IRA. So if you are talking to 3 donors this week, at least one of them will have, the numbers bear out, will have an IRA or retirement plan. So this is something you should bring up with every single donor on every donor visit. Do you have a retirement plan? That might be a possibility for you to consider as your charitable gift. Most Americans do have a retirement plan. It's broken out a little bit further, and this slide is in the chart is in the material as well. Either through their IRA alone or through something through work, an employer-sponsored plan, they do have an IRA or some other kind of retirement plan. So this is something that we should be talking to our donors about. The other thing that's nice is as adjusted gross income increases, they are more likely to have an IRA. They're more likely to own an IRA if they have a larger amount of income. This makes sense. They likely have more disposable income. And so they're more likely to own an IRA. So the major donors that you are looking at and having conversations with, they're more likely to have an IRA. So that 1 out of 3, don't think just 1 out of 3 of my major donors will have an IRA. It's more likely to be a much higher percentage of those particular donors. You're most likely your target donors. The other thing that's nice is that as household income increases, they are more likely to make charitable gifts. So as household income increases, they're more likely to have the IRA and they're more likely to make charitable gifts. So don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid to ask them about a charitable gift, especially from their retirement plan. The IRS does some studies every now and then, especially on the estate tax return. And this is a list of their most recent study of the assets that Americans hold at death. You can see it's kind of broken out among the different asset levels that would exist in a person's estate. Let's kind of focus in on the retirement plan assets. The retirement plan assets are between 2% and 12% of the total estate. So earlier I said 30% of their total assets are retirement assets. How did it get down to 2 to 12%? Well, by the time people die, they've had to start taking withdrawals out of their IRAs and out of their retirement plans. And that's one of the reasons why their retirement plan assets will be a smaller portion of their overall net worth. So, Dennis, you mentioned, and it's listed on page 4 of the outline that Dennis provided. I've got questions for you. What's the estate tax exemption for 2018? $11 million. So if our donor has an $11 million estate, they do not have any estate tax that they will owe. So the next question is, if we have a donor whose estate is between $5 and $10 million, let's just focus in on those red bars there. If we have a donor between $5 and $10 million, what's their tax that they're going to owe on their estate? They're under $11 million, so do they have a tax? They have no estate tax, but they may have a tax that the estate will owe in the form of an income tax on their retirement assets. And that's one of the reasons why it is the highest tax asset your clients will have, your donors will have, even if they only have a $400,000 estate. If all $400,000 is in a retirement plan or an IRA, then all $400,000 will be exempt from estate tax, but they will owe income tax. Somebody will owe income tax on that asset. So some of the tax rules, we went through these a little bit earlier. When money goes into an IRA, generally there's no income tax on that. When it goes into a 401k or a 403b, generally there's no income tax that is due on that. And while that 401k, 403b, or IRA is invested, there's no income tax on the earnings or on the growth from year to year. There's only tax when money is withdrawn. And so the first rule is that whenever money is withdrawn from an IRA, there will be an ordinary income tax that will be due. And that will be at the rates that were on the first page of Dennis's handout. The ordinary income tax rates that will apply. The second rule that applies are 59.5 and 70.5 rules. If our donor pulls money out of their IRA before age 59.5, and this is the tax law, so there's a few exceptions here and there, but 99% of the time, if the donor pulls money out of their IRA before age 59.5, they'll not only owe income tax on that, they'll also owe an extra 10% excise tax, an additional 10% penalty tax that they're going to have to pay. That extra 10% penalty tax does not apply after age 59.5, which of course means it does not apply after age 70.5. The third thing that we want to watch out for is not withdrawing enough from the IRA. Before age 59.5, of course, we don't want to withdraw because they're going to be subject to the ordinary tax as well as the excise tax, that 10% penalty tax. Between 59 and 70.5, our donors can pull out as much as they want from their IRA, and they're only subject to the income tax. Or they can pull out zero or little, and they're not subject to any penalties. Once they reach age 70.5, however, they are going to be subject to a penalty tax if they don't withdraw enough money from their IRA. It's a small amount at first, but they do have to withdraw a certain amount of money each and every year from their IRAs. And if they don't, they owe a 50% penalty tax. So if they had to withdraw $2,000 this year, if they failed to, they will owe a $1,000 tax, $1,000 penalty tax for not pulling out enough money. And they have to pull out the $2,000 and be subject to ordinary income tax on that. So what this means is that age 70.5 is a very important timeline for us in IRA planning. And if we look at this, is from the Census Bureau, we look at the number of people that are turning 70.5, and if I could draw a line right at age 70.5, I would. We can see that there's going to be a huge increase in the number of people that are turning 70.5 in the next few years. And so let's just focus in on just that little red box area here. And we can see it's going to go from about 2.5 million people per year to about 3.5 million people per year are going to turn age 70 and a half in the next couple of years. This large increase in the number of people turning 70 and a half means there's a lot of people who are going to have to pull more money than ever before out of their IRAs, and they're going to have to do it for the first time. Anytime there is a change in a person's financial scenario, whether they're selling their business or whether the stock that they own is going through a taxable merger, whether they are going through a retirement phase such as turning 70 and a half, that's a tremendous time to get in front of them and talk about a charitable gift as an opportunity to help them express their financial and charitable wishes. So IRA taxation, just a few simple words again. Most of the time, money in an IRA has never been taxed, never been subject to income tax. It's only subject to tax when it's pulled out, and that includes if it's pulled out in the estate, or if it's pulled out by someone who survives the original owner of that IRA. And this is called income in respect of a decedent. IRD is something that you might run into. I'll give you a cautionary tale from a couple of years ago. There was a dad who named his son number one. He had 3 sons. He named son number one as the executor of his estate. He also named son number one as the sole beneficiary of his IRA. For simple purposes, we'll call this a $99,000 IRA. Well, son number one said, well, obviously dad wanted to get, treat us all of us equally, so I'm going to pull money, that $99,000 out of the IRA and write a $33,000 check to brother number one and $33,000 check to brother number two. I get to keep the other $33,000 and we're all happy. Yes, this was a court case. Unfortunately, because of the IRD tax we just mentioned, son number one is the one who withdrew that $99,000, so son number one was taxed for ordinary income tax purposes on $99,000, which, for ease of purpose, we'll call it a 35% tax. So he owes $35,000, but he only has $33,000 left over. He wasn't happy about this. So he took the IRS to court.